Hey. Yeah. So this is my first time doing one of these. My logic is that I won't know how they work until I do one. So I'm just gonna give it a go. I've left the chat open, so feel free to say hello. If you have any particular questions around Notion, put them in there and I'll keep glancing over and answer when I can. But other than that, yeah, it should just be like a nice, cozy little time. I've got and I'll bring it up in a second. My goal for today is I have a spreadsheet that I'm going to turn into a Notion page, and I thought it would just be fun to kind of live stream it, just so you can see my process. And if you're someone who maybe isn't using Notion or has just started and wants to know a bit more, that you can see just how easy it is to move from one tool to another. So yeah, I guess I'll just get going. Give me a second. Like I said, this is my first time doing this like all on my own. I've done talks before, but I've not been the one to like try and moderate with the tools, so bear with me. Okay, there we go. So a bit of background about this. So my partner is already using Notion, but he still uses Excel to monitor his to-do list. So I asked if I could borrow it and just do a quick live demo of turning it into a Notion page. It's also helpful for him, so that's fine. I've tried to simplify some of the tasks in here just to make them a bit more understandable. So I'll start by just going through, like I've had a chat with him about what all of this means, like what each bit he's using each bit for. Airtable, that's on my list of things to learn. Yeah, one day. But yeah, so starting from the left is where he's calling proposed features. That's just the name of the thing he's got to do. Completed, yes or no, obviously that's if he's completed or not. Interestingly, he's also got another column here for if it's just in progress, if it's just something he's doing, if it's something he's working on. He's also got two columns for priority and importance, and he explained this to me. Priority is the order in which he's gonna work through them, and then importance is how urgent or how optional is it. So there is a distinction between the two, but yeah, hopefully we can tidy that up a little bit too. Difficulty estimate is just a scale of 1 to 10 on how complex he thinks it's going to be. Implementation progress, obviously that's how far along in the task he is. Some of these are like quite big, so I'm not 100% sure how he's calculating this, but that's what he told me. It's just how far through it he is. And then additional notes, pretty self-explanatory, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully not spend too much longer and convert this into a very simple Notion format, and then if I've got time I'll just play around with maybe advanced features that you can do in Notion, but I won't go too far with it. So to start with, if it's an Excel, it's easiest to download it as a CSV rather than try and mess with the data in Excel itself. And then jump into Notion, where you can then import that CSV. You saw how I did that, import CSV, and then grab it from in here, and Notion should just tidy it up and import it. There you go. So let's see. Okay, yeah, it's pretty much, it has matched it from what we had before, but we can just ignore this Excel sheet now. We could just throw this away. Don't need that anymore. So to start with, I'm just going to get rid of all these empty tasks down here. You could see before in the spreadsheet that to make the formulas in Excel work for him, he'd just kind of dragged all the cells down and then was filling in items, I guess. So we don't need those though. Next, what do we want to do? So these two are quite interesting to me, completed and in progress. So in Notion, you have these things called selects, which are essentially drop downs, but they have another type, which is called status. I can open this for you to see. So with the status property in Notion, you've got to-dos, in progresses, and completes, which is, you can see why I'm gonna start using this one instead. So to do, actually, let's see. I've got this uncompleted. So all the ones that he's currently marked as yes in completed are completed. So that needs to go down here. And then we can remove this property. And then complete, done. And set it to green. Okay, so all the ones that he's done are now marked as done. And then the no's are still ambiguous as to whether they're in progress or not. So what am I going to do here? I can set all of the ones that are flagged as in progress here as in progress on this side too. Done. Oh, cool. Okay, that was quite easy. Then edit property. So the ones that are n are, oh, it's going to complain if I do that first. So if you set this as default, then delete this not started one and set this not started. Okay, I think that's it. So where before we had one column for completed stuff and another column for in progress stuff, and he was just check, it is actually two checkbox rows. Now we have just one status where as stuff moves through, going from not started to in progress to done, you update the status, update a single status, and that's going to come in handy later on. Priority and importance. Okay, so what do we want to do with these? My first instinct is to change the color. That's more of like a, you know, just me having a bit of fun with this, not necessarily an important thing to do. Wait, low green and then medium orange. Okay, just to have like a traffic light system. I think it's easier, at least for me, to scan through and see like which things are red, which things are green. Obviously this is a personal preference, and when we go through this later on, we can change it, we can update it, but just for now, just so we can see which things are the most important. So all the red ones are like important to do. Additional notes. So this is a fun one. I've seen this done before in other templates where if you have something additional to add, you create a property for it. But for me personally, I prefer to put it either as a content in the task itself or as a comment on the task. So I can show you how to do that now. So here, rather than having additional notes as a property, you can either add it into the page body itself. So this is like a running document of this task. Or what you can do is just add it as a comment in here, in the comment feature at the top. Which means that if you were working on this with multiple people, they'd all be able to add in their feedback here. You could start a conversation. If you were someone, basically you can react to the comments as well. Like if you think it's a particularly important thing, you could put a thumbs up on it. And then if it's something that's no longer relevant, so here it says may not be needed in general, but if we find that that's the case, you can resolve it and it will get rid of the comment. It's just an alternative way to use commenting and documenting in Notion that isn't just adding it as a field. These have uses, but they're not as interactive as putting it in here. So now I can delete this because that was the only row that had a comment on it. I feel quite safe doing that. Next, let's do implementation difficulty estimates. So first I want to change that title because it's way too long. And then edit properties. So within Notion, they added this not too long ago, is you can have it displayed as the number or you can display it as something more graphical. So like either a bar chart, it's like a progress meter, or a ring, which is again, progress meter. Here he's got the rating difficulty out of 10. So you divide the number that he's put in by 10 and I don't know, let's pick a color, blue. So, I mean, it would be helpful really to have the ring change color depending on what the number is or how much it was filled, but that's not a feature, sadly. But yeah, here he'll be able to have kind of like a a star rating, I guess, to show how difficult this particular task is. And then similarly with progress, you just change this to progress. And like I said before, you can have the bar to show you how far along it is. And here, to tidy it up, you can even remove the number as well. And then to edit, it's easy to click and change the number here. But just to keep it simple, showing visual progress along the task. What else do we want to do? I mean, this is already a pretty strong start just from moving from Excel into Notion in terms of getting the data cleaned. But next, what I want to do, just to show you the power of different views in Notion. So rather than having it in just one big list like this, having something a bit more dynamic. So one thing I like in Notion, excuse me, one thing I like in Notion is the board view. So this is like a traditional Kanban where you have a list of all the things you need to do on the left-hand side. And then if you imagine them like Post-it notes on a wall, as you complete them, or as you start working on them and then complete them, you move them along to the right. So the aim is to get everything from the left side onto the right side. And to do this in Notion, I've created a new view. You saw at the top, and then I've selected type board. You can group the columns by that status we made before. And there we go. So on the left, again, thinking in terms of Post-it notes, you've not started, in progress, and then done. I don't know if that's displaying the right way in the in the feed. Is it this way? So here you're sorting this way, sort by ascending. Basically, the important thing is they're already in order. Why am I overthinking this? You can also do some nice things in Notion, like coloring the columns. That's just, again, a personal preference. I think it makes it easier to see where the columns are. Properties. So on each of these cards, at the moment we're just displaying the name of the task, and then there's like indicators for if it's got anything in it or if it's got comments on it. But you can also show things like the progress bars we made before, or the difficulty rating. You can also show how important it is, and this is where it's going to start breaking, is the priority. So there are two things we can do here. Either we can go in and rename all of these so that it's like high priority, high importance. So then on here it would be like low priority, or low priority, low importance. But the other thing is, I would suggest to Chris, my partner who gave me the Excel spreadsheet, is to think about, instead of having a tag for priority, if that's really the order in which he needs to do things, to just use the order that the cards are displayed in on the left over here, which means really you could get rid of the priority orders completely, or the priority property completely. So to do that, first let's sort by priority. So he needs to do these two things first. Fix issues with manual inputting, and then improve usability. Let's just save that real quick. Then if I go into priority and delete the column, and go back into board, fix issues manually inputting values, and then improve usability. So he needs to do those two first, which means that that one can go lower. Obviously this is where he would come in and like manually shuffle things around. But roughly, this is the order in which he needs to do stuff now. So he can just take things off of the top of here, move them over, rather than trying to scan through. Actually, let's bring back up the Excel and think about how he would have done that before. So before, he would have had to scan through and be like, okay, so there's a medium here, there's also a medium here. Which one do I do first? Whereas now with the Notion board, you can say, okay, this one's at the top. I'll just take this one off the top and do it first. And then, of course, as you complete stuff, you can drag it over into done. What other fun things can we do here? Let's see. Okay, so with the difficulty value, let's see if I'll be able to do this live. So what you can do in Notion that's quite clever is with formulas. So if you have a particular property, you can take data from that property and transform it into something else. It's a bizarre way of putting it, but let's see if I can do this. This is the problem with doing stuff live. Okay, so we have this difficulty formula which passes in the property that's in difficulty, which at the moment is a number. So what do we want to do? Let's say if the difficulty is greater than, see, how do we do it without the large, okay, it is. Does that work for numbers? It does. If the property of difficulty is larger than, I don't know, 7, then it's very important. I've done this the wrong way around. It's very important, otherwise it's not that important. And this is where I get to debug live, which is quite frustrating. How have I? That is bizarre. Okay, maybe I need to large it then. Okay, so to number. You can see why these things take a while. So, okay, the issue I think here is that the property difficulty, even though it looks like a number, it's not reading in as a number. So you will need to convert it to a number. No, okay. Come on, Amy. Property of this is greater than 7. Therefore, it's very important, otherwise not that important. Am I going mad? Is that not right? Okay. What am I looking for now? Let's try larger. Just to see if that's the issue. No. Oh, it's literally just that I had a space at the end. Okay. Okay. See, this is a perfect example of why doing any kind of programmatic thing live is just asking for trouble. Literally, I would have just sat here for oh dear, okay. And then actually to show the, because there aren't many things here that are, there are no things here that are greater than 7. Let's say 5. Let's say 4. So you can see here that when we take in the difficulty number, we can read it out as a text string rather than as a number itself. That might make it easier for Chris to gauge if something is important or not. So if we go back to the board and we go to properties and then difficulty formula, and rather than showing that number, I shouldn't say important, should I? I should say difficult, not that. Formula, not that difficult. This is very difficult. And then you can put in smiley faces just to obviously it'd be more helpful if I picked ones here that weren't the same color, but you get the idea. So now you can scan and be like, okay, this one's quite easy, I'll do this one first. Or this one's difficult, but I'm feeling quite energetic today, so I will do this one first so that I can leave that less difficult one for myself later on. Yeah, so that was an example of how with formulas you can take something that makes sense, like if you're ranking it numerically, but then when it comes to evaluating between which things to do first, it's helpful to have a bit more of a human indicator of what it's going to take to finish that task. I mean, unless there's anything else I can perhaps go through, I might just try and think of something else myself that would be interesting to show. Okay, right. So at the moment, Chris doesn't have any way of visualizing long term how his tasks are going to be completed. Like, they're all just in a list, and he can do them as he pleases, which is good. That's fine. A lot of people prefer to work in that way of not having the time pressure to need to get something done by a certain time, whereas other people, and I think this is more my style, need the deadlines, need the rigid, you're going to do this by this time. So I'm going to show you a way you can implement that in Notion here as well. There are two possible ways to do this, but I'm going to show you the more interesting one today. So in that view is called timeline. So you might recognize this more as like I suppose it is a timeline, but if you're familiar with Gantt charts, it's kind of similar to that. Let's just call it timeline. So, see, how do I best explain this? It's not December, that's not right. Does it think it's December? Am I going mad? No, okay, whatever. So here we have all of the tests that Chris needs doing, but we don't know which ones have particular deadlines or if we want to schedule one after the other. So let's say that he wants to, or say that he's working on improving the usability of the web tool at the moment. And he started it, he started it on the 16th and he needs to finish it by the 27th. So there's one task. He can see where he is in terms of the amount of time he has left on that task, etc. Let's do another one just to show you how these would stack. This isn't very helpful because obviously I don't know the task so well, so I'm guessing which ones come in next. So let's see. Possibility of non-integer index values. Okay, let's put that one on. And let's say that he needs to do that one. Let's start on the 30th. You can do it in a week. Let's do another one. This one. And he needs to work on this one now, I guess. So you can see, using this timeline view, you can start building up a plan of like, okay, I'm gonna do this task now, and then this task can come at this particular date. And you can see them all just in a nice orderly timeline view. Let's just do one more. Just so I can show you another cool thing. So with this, it's not really, this is just a vanilla timeline, but if you wanted to have it stacking chronologically, what you do is you go to sort by date, and date ascending, which is the default, thankfully, and you can see in order of things that need doing, like when they'll come up on the plan. With this view as well, let's see. You could put on that difficulty formula, or you could put on the progress bar. You could even put on the, where is it? I need to rename this. The status. So he's gonna get mad at me now, messing with the data. So you can see, like, if I'd already done that one, I wouldn't need to think about it. Say I was working on this one. So at this point I can see I'm on track. I need to start this one at some point because my day cursor has now reached this point, but that's where I am working hard. Just trying to think if there's anything else interesting I can show here. There is, and this is probably one for me to cover in a different stream, just because I need to understand it a bit better myself, and because it's quite a chunky topic, is that you can link together tasks now in Notion. So you can say, before I improve the usability of the web tool, I need to add a feature to choose between different input values. So you can connect them like this, which means then if I go into this task, I should see that it's now linked the two together. But obviously there's a lot more to cover here in terms of building up task priority pipelines, things like that. But yeah, that's how you would use them in a timeline view. Just trying to think if there's anything else I can cover in the time I have left. Anything else fun? I think I've covered everything that I wanted to go through. I didn't want this to be anything too big or complicated. One, because this was more about me learning how live streaming works, given LinkedIn. It's been a bit of an adventure actually, just learning how it all works. And like compared to streaming on other platforms, getting all of my setup ready, picking topics, all of that kind of thing. So from that perspective, it's been quite fun. So I didn't want to do anything too complicated Notion-wise. I've enjoyed this. It's been quite nerve-wracking, but it's also fun to have that accountability of not just giving up on a problem or not getting distracted. So yeah, that's been good. I'm hoping to do more of these in the future at some point, once I find maybe a topic that a lot of people need help with, or yeah, if there's just something fun that I can try out live on air, make more mistakes. But that's been me going through the Excel spreadsheet that I borrowed from Chris, evaluating it and then converting it into something in Notion that maybe is a little bit more useful. And I hope as well that you can see how easy it is to update and tweak things and just change things around, accepting the difficulty formula. I think that's just me having Friday brain. And then also just the potential that there is compared to having your data fixed in like a static table, being able to do things like transfer it into a Kanban board view or into a timeline and not affecting the table data itself, just making it a bit more visible, a bit more usable. So yeah, I think that's been it for me today. Yeah, anybody watching, I haven't really been checking, but yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the next one, and yeah, thanks.